Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our BRIDG meeting for December 2024. My name is Arjen Ravenbach, and I will be serving as the moderator and host for the meeting today. As a reminder, the Office of Agency Services at the National Archives and Records Administration hosts these bi-monthly Records and Information Discussion Group, or BRIDG meetings, to present information relating to federal records management. BRIDG is co-produced by the Office of the Chief Records Officer for the United States and the Federal Records Center program, and is live streamed to the audience over our YouTube channel. Generally, BRIDG meetings consist of a scheduled program of presentations with an open forum at the end of each meeting to ask questions of the presenters or of any related federal records management topic of interest. Viewers are encouraged to ask questions by sending an email to rm.communications@nara.gov. Our staff is monitoring this email box during the meeting today. You are also welcome to ask questions and make comments during the meeting in the YouTube chat. However, keep in mind that all chat messages are subject to moderation, so we ask that you keep them relevant to the topics being discussed. Copies of today's presentation slides will be posted on the BRIDG page of the Archives website. That web page is also where you'll find the links and information about previous and upcoming BRIDG meetings. If you have general questions and comments about BRIDG or suggestions for future topics, you can use that same email address, rm.communications@nara.gov, to pass those along to us. We always welcome your feedback. Next slide. The agenda for today's meeting includes an update on the NARA strategic framework, updates from our colleagues at the Federal Records Center program, and an update on the forthcoming bulletin on metadata for classified records. So I would like to start today's meeting by introducing the Deputy Archivist of the United States, Jay Bosanko. Good afternoon, Jay. Next slide.
Hi, Arjen. Thank you for serving as the moderator, and thank you for your introduction. And thank you to everybody that is joining us today. So a strategic plan is not something that is particularly new, especially to this audience. But this is not a strategic plan, but rather a framework. So we put that in context. The last strategic plan issued by the National Archives was released in the spring of 2022, and it covered the years 2022 through 2026. Now, obviously, a strategic plan serves to guide an agency's decision, but it's also an opportunity for an agency head to sort of put their mark on the agency. With a new agency head, Dr. Colleen Shogan, joining the National Archives just over a year and a half ago, and knowing that we would be facing a new administration, we worked to sort of start the process of developing our next strategic plan early. Wanted to be a little bit more nimble, a little bit more agile, and be prepared when OMB and the White House reach out next year and start providing direction to agencies to develop a new strategic plan. But we also didn't want to be presumptuous and get too far ahead of ourselves and do a complete strategic plan, because it in fact needs to consider the president's management agenda and whatever direction we're going to get from the incoming administration. However, it was a good opportunity to start conversations internally and externally and start moving in that direction. So if we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So we started with our leadership team here at the National Archives, and then we engaged with our staff. We also engaged with some of our key external stakeholders in the civil society and the historian community. And coming out of that process is our framework. So the framework includes a mission and a vision that you see here on the screen. If you've heard the Archivists of the United States speak, these words roll right off our tongue. We preserve, protect, and share the historical records of the United States to promote public inquiry and strengthen democratic participation. Ultimately, that is what is so special about the National Archives, right? In our unique form of democracy, it's one where the government is held accountable by the people. And how does that happen? It happens through records. It starts with adequate and proper documentation, ensuring that those records are preserved, and then making them available. And then the vision. You've always got to have the vision statement. So the National Archives will serve all Americans as a trusted repository of knowledge that inspires civic engagement and encourages the discovery of our nation's stories. So those are our going forward, our mission and our vision. Let's take a look at the values now. Next slide. So we used to have 3 values: collaborate, innovate, and learn. And we've expanded those. We've also sort of go about referring to them in a slightly different way. You'll see each of these starts with we. We serve, obviously, almost everybody in the audience today is a civil servant. You know, we take our role as stewards here at the National Archives very seriously, but the whole concept of service underpins everything we do. And essentially here, you know, we are our nation's record keepers, and our work ensures current and future generations can connect with and learn from our shared past. We inspire, first and foremost, as archival professionals, records managers, all the other fields that come together underneath the National Archives. We want to be leaders in our field. But we also want to encourage creativity and curiosity for everybody from school children to retirees. We want people to feel sort of that, you know, have that opportunity to get excited about records and to work with them. The next one, we solve problems. This one's really critical. You know, NARA is a relatively small agency with a relatively small budget, but very large and complex problems. We need to be bold. We have to develop novel approaches and imaginative solutions for pretty much every aspect of our work. And then we've got to embrace advanced technologies and new business practices so that we can not just thrive, but be relevant in a digital world. The next one, critically important, particularly in today's day and age, it's important that we're viewed as nonpartisan. We're viewed as an authoritative and objective source for knowledge and American information, and that we serve all Americans with honesty, fairness, and integrity. And then I mentioned sort of our challenges from a resource perspective. We are efficient. We, and this again, the concept of stewardship dovetails nicely here as well. We need to be good stewards of the resources that we get, and then collaborate, innovate, and optimize our operations to effectively meet our mission. So these are the values that will sort of guide NARA staff as we move forward. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, so now a mission, a vision, and the values, really don't expect those to change much, right? They're somewhat evergreen, but now you get into strategic goals, and keeping in mind that this is not a full-blown strategic plan, but rather a high-level framework that can guide our decision-making and sort of allow us to jumpstart our development of a strategic plan, but recognizing we don't yet have guidance from the incoming administration. We believe these next few goals that I'm going to walk you through, no matter what the direction is, these are the kinds of things that the agency's got to confront. And so they aren't fleshed out. It's sort of, you know, for build our digital future. Goal number 1, everything you're seeing on the slide right now is everything that we have developed and shared. And I think, you know, to those of you that have, you know, worked with the National Archives for an extended period of time and have worked in this space, this should resonate well with you. We need to embrace the primacy of electronic information in all facets of our work and position ourselves to lead accordingly. We've got to leverage advanced technologies, re-engineer systems, processes, and our infrastructure to properly manage, preserve, and share our collections in the digital age. The reality is, despite our successes, there is a exceedingly large gap between our current capability and what we need to be able to do. And for those of you that are familiar with the RMSA and the questions that we pose of agencies, there was one question that really kind of brings this one home for me. We asked about large data sets. And there were two interesting things that came out of us asking that question. The first was, unfortunately, highlighted a challenge that all of you face in general. For a variety of reasons, only 6% of responding agencies could answer this question definitively or in a confident way. And the others have more work to do, which either means there's internal challenges about their access to getting the information. So that in of itself is telling. The second thing is, though, the 6% that were able to answer the questions about large data sets identified 40 petabytes. 40 petabytes. And that's only 6%. So I can tell you right now, ERA 2.0 can't take in 40 petabytes. So we've got a lot of work to do around our infrastructure and our systems, and to further develop sort of our system of systems. We need to integrate artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotic process automation so that we can enhance data management, review, and access to records. The volume is outstripping the ability to have human intervention at every step of the way. I think we have to prioritize user experience design. We have got to keep moving forward with our digitization efforts of analog materials, but we've really got to sort of step that up as well. We need to continue to modernize records management practices across the federal government. We at the National Archives, most of our resources, most of our structures, most of our policies are still built around the analog world. Records are records, but all too often we've tried to address born digital records with the processes, the policies that have been developed and honed, and that have frankly worked really well for us in an analog world. But let's be blunt. The ways that federal agencies are creating and using electronic records are absolutely evolving faster than records management practices and policies. So a lot of work to be done there. And then we obviously need to focus on making sure that our business practices and our skill sets of our employees are also moving forward into the digital age. So at a very high level, that's sort of strategic goal one. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, strategic goal two, transforming access and engagement. A lot of this gets down to expectations. What does the public expect of the National Archives? What does Congress expect? What do you as federal agencies expect of us? So we want to enhance and expand our digitization efforts, do the same with our education programs, our exhibits, our online resources, and obviously our partnership and collaboration outreach efforts so that we can reach new audiences and sort of cultivate engagement with not just our records, but also our services. We want to provide more opportunities for people to engage with the materials we hold, regardless of where they are, right? So first and foremost, we need to increase discoverability availability and accessibility of our records and our services. Next bullet should really appeal to a lot of you because it's a big part of your work as well as ours. We need to continue to optimize declassification and access request processing. So Freedom of Information Act, mandatory declassification review, Privacy Act, all of those types of requests. Again, the volume is overwhelming the ability of the National Archives and then those that have equities in our documents to respond to them in the traditional sense. We want to expand opportunities for teachers and students of all ages to be able to learn from their own history. We want to create meaningful, engaging experiences, whether in person or online. And then we need to foster meaningful community engagement and collaborations around the country with new audiences and expand our existing ones. Let's go ahead and go to strategic goal number 3. All right, elevating service. So, going back to our values, the idea of service and civil service and what we all do as federal employees is really sort of critical here. We want to sort of develop a culture of service so that every one of our interactions is meeting our own high standards and meeting our users' needs. So for federal agencies, meeting your needs as well as the requirements that we have. We want to engage on a regular basis with our customers, internally and externally, understand their needs, how our services meeting their needs, what can we do better. We want to streamline all of our engagements, whether it's with researchers, museum visitors, or any other customer, to include federal agencies. And then, we all take a great deal of pride in our work, but we want to keep improving customer satisfaction and be known for delivering consistent, reliable, and reputable service. There's one more goal. Let's go ahead and go to goal 4. All right. So, growing our capacity. As I alluded to earlier, we can't get to where we need to be with the resources we currently have, with the infrastructure we currently have. In every possible way, we need to grow our capacity. And what does that mean? Well, first and foremost, it comes down to the staff. We need to support them. They need the tools. They need the educational opportunities. They need constant support. And then we need to optimize our operations. More importantly, or just as importantly, we need to not be silent about the challenges we face as an agency, but also the opportunities. And so we want to attract, train, and support a skilled, diverse, cohesive workforce. We have an amazing mission. We have incredible people here, but we need to support them, and we need to encourage more people to seek out careers in the records management and archive space and all of our affiliated career fields. We've got to, we've done this. There was a big effort previously to reorganize and to reduce silos and focus our organizations on our customers, but there's a lot more work to be done in that space. And so we're going to keep working to do that. We have no choice but to modernize and optimize everything we do. It's our facilities, it's our operations, it's our processes, our services. We have to meet our and your evolving needs. And then, sort of like I said at the the start of this one, we have to engage with others and raise awareness. So we need to collaborate with both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue and across the federal space to help people understand what it is that we're facing in the way of challenges, what it will take to address them in a meaningful way, and move ourselves. My entire career, people have talked about the tsunami of electronic records, right? It really hasn't shown up yet, but it's here now. It's right on the edge, and now we're facing trillions of emails. We're facing petabytes of data that we have to manage. There is such a gap between our current capability and where we need to be. We've got to make our case to Congress, the White House, and others about the challenges we're facing and the importance of the work that we do. So let me just wrap up with sort of stressing. This is a framework. It's not a new strategic plan. A new strategic plan will come in the new year with guidance from a new administration. This is to help us start to get our arms around the challenges we're facing and what we might need to do. Each one of these goals is going to get fleshed out into a strategic plan. And as we've done in the past, when we have a draft strategic plan, we'll be sharing it with key stakeholders, and that includes you in the federal records management space. So use this time to think about our mission, our vision, our values, and these 4 strategic goals. This strategic framework was sent out to all agency records management points of contact. And I think we'll put the link to that in the chat. So we look forward to hearing from you. And you're all going to be going through this exercise at your own agencies. But we wanted to start the process here at the National Archives and not just wait for it to creep up on us, if you will. All right, that's the heart of what I wanted to convey today.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. We did share the link to that AC memo in the chat, so everybody on the call, who's watching on the YouTube, was able to download that. And I want to thank you for your time. We'll let you know if there's any follow-up.
Sounds good. Thank you all. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Jay. Next slide, please. We'd like to turn the meeting over to our colleagues at the Federal Records Center program for their updates this month. I'll introduce Arthur Hawkins, Director of Customer Relations Management for the FRCP. You're up.
Thank you, Ari, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arthur Hawkins. I am the Director of Customer Relationship Management, and I'd like to thank you, our federal customers, for your continued support of the Federal Records Centers program. As some may know, we have started a monthly communication called For the Record. We began sending it out to our customers last month and plan on sending it at the beginning of each month. The communication will just be a little factoid about the Federal Records Centers program that many of you seasoned records officers may already know about us, so you can just consider it a gentle reminder. But for the new records officers, this is to help you understand a little bit more about us and who you're doing business with. As always, should you have any questions, you may reach out to your national account manager for more information. Now I'd like to introduce you to Ron Mitchell. Ron is one of our senior-most account managers and would like to share some information. Ron?
Good afternoon. Next slide, please. As Art mentioned, my name is Ron Mitchell. I'm an account manager with the Customer Relations Branch, and I'll be discussing today responses received from the customer satisfaction survey that we sent out this past spring. Next slide, please. The survey was very broad in scope and covered a great many areas. Today, we're going to focus on 4 areas that we believe are of the greatest importance to our customers: the overall satisfaction with the FRC and its services, your monthly invoices, interagency agreements, and ARCUS. Next slide, please. Starting with the summary, really, of all that we do, you'll see that there's a very high level of satisfaction overall with the storage and services provided by the FRCP. I've aggregated all of the responses. Initially, they were grouped into 6 or 7 different shades and flavors of agree or disagree. We've broken it down here into just agree, disagree, or no opinion, don't know. Starting with in calendar year 2023, did the FRC meet your agency's expectations relating to the servicing of records? We got a 91.53 agree, which is good. The FRC is responsive to my service-related questions and concerns, 98.3. The FRC is timely in resolving service-related questions and concerns, 91.52. The FRCs are consistent in servicing agency records, 89.83. And finally, the FRCs offer the services my agency needs to effectively manage the records of the 21st century, 91.38. So across the board, very good scores. Next slide, please. This is a quick slide. This just shows that as records officers, 3/4 of you are responsible for reviewing your monthly invoice. We encourage everyone to do that. It's the best way to get a feel for the storage and services that your divisions, regions, and field offices are using. Next slide, please. When you do receive it, this is another quick one. Responses to the survey show that 3/4 of you are able to review your invoice in an hour or less. 18% spend 2 to 5 hours, and then there's 7% that spend 6 to 10 hours or more. Next slide. And your satisfaction with the invoice, the format it arrives in. A quick glance at this one will tell you that the customers are overwhelmingly satisfied with the invoice. It's clear, 95%. It's accurate, 95%. It's delivered in a timely manner, 95%. It provides the adequate amount of detail for you to understand it, 92%. And it's easy to get answers when you do have questions, 95%. So we can all agree it doesn't get a lot better than that. Looking forward to hopefully getting them even higher. Next slide, please. And this one is concerning your interagency agreement, overall satisfaction. Creating and routing the annual agreement has always been challenging for us. We have updates to the terms and conditions. We have to wait for rates. There's routing delays. Nonetheless, 3/4 of the customers are satisfied with the process. The agreement is clear, 75%. It's accurate, 73%. And it's delivered in a timely manner, 69.64%. Next slide, please. Jumping into ARCUS. This is the quickest slide in the deck. Do you use ARCUS? 94.74% of you do, and we love that. Next slide. Okay, we're going to start at the bottom half of this chart. This has to do with your satisfaction with the ARCUS system. 3/4 of the customers find that the training manuals, online tutorials, web page, help desk, it's all useful in navigating ARCUS. We'll take that. We have the resources in place and the customers use them. We're always looking for ways to improve your experience with ARCUS and its support systems. So if you have a specific question or request on those resources, please pass it along to your account manager. Across the board here, we can look at 59, 64 for the bottom two, and then the rest of the questions are all in the 70s. So we're a work in process there. Based on the survey, hovering generally in the 60 to 65% overall. They're not bad numbers, but they're not where we'd like to see them. So as we speak, there's a remake of ARCUS on a new platform that we hope that you, our customers, will prefer. I won't go into that in detail. That'll be another topic for another bridge meeting, but the new Arcus 2 coming out, I think, is going to be a real winner across the board. In summary, we're pleased with the results of the survey. They confirmed what we pretty much already knew and hear from you directly throughout the year. Our customer agencies are satisfied with the FRCP and its services. Slide. And I'll pass it over now to Jeff, the Chief Financial Analyst.
Thanks, Ron. Good morning and good afternoon to those on the line. I just have a really quick update that's a follow-on to something that was sent out in writing through the Customer Relationship Management branch. And that is that by September 30th, this coming September 30th, we will be shutting down our records management consulting branch. It's part of the strategic arc, both of NARA and the Record Centers program. That said, we will continue to honor all of our existing agreements. And provide the same excellent level of service that we always have. We're not going to be able to enter into any new agreements in the meantime because we do want to dedicate our existing resources to make sure that our current agreements are brought to fruition and our customers are fully satisfied. So that's all I have. We're going to pivot now to Russell Loisel for some national T&D updates.
Hi, thanks, Jeff. As you mentioned, I'm Russell Loisel. I'm the Director of National Transfer and Disposition. And we have a few updates for you. I figured we keep you abreast of the progress that we're making. So next slide, please. All right, so in disposition, of course, we mentioned last time that the backlog from COVID-19 had been completely eliminated. So kudos to everybody for their hard work, both on our side and your side on getting all that disposal approved and taken care of. So far this year, we're still rocking along pretty good. We've already disposed of over 4,236 transfers, which is just shy of 178,000 cubic feet. The disposition approved over 90 days old is down. So that's the post-pandemic backlog that we're working on now, because we did, first in, first out. So the newer stuff got behind a little bit, but that's down to 315,000 cubic feet. So once again, thank you, everybody. I know your CPDMs and your spreadsheets have been coming to you, and you guys have been doing a great job responding. So thank you. There's still more to do. In CPDM, which is the online approval module for those that aren't on it. So instead of getting spreadsheets or 13001s, you actually go into Arcus and you can approve them or decline them online. There's over 18,000 transfers that are waiting for you in your inbox. So please continue the great work and take care of those. And for the rest of you, they're doing traditional 13001s. That come as PDFs to you, or those fantastic agencies that prefer spreadsheets. We have 103,000 that are awaiting action from you. So once we get those approvals, we'll start our other end of the process and get them out the door for you. All right, next slide. Next slide, there you go. All right. So in the world of transfers, of course, we mentioned last time the progress that we had made on the surge with everybody frantically scrambling to get everything they could into submitted status. So during the first quarter, we've processed an additional 2,000 out of that 20,000, which leaves us just over 1,000 more to review. So if you still have transfers in the hopper that haven't been approved, let me reassure you that we will get to them. It's a lot of work to review and approve those transfers. But that 20,000 is now down to 1,000. So fantastic work. As far as bringing records in, centers are struggling because, of course, everyone, once you got your transfer approved, wanted to send it in, which is what you're supposed to do. But as we mentioned, pre-deadline, you really do need to work with your FRC, so please continue to do that. We can only take in so much at a time and get it up on the shelf in a timely manner, just based on resources. But so far, we've already received and shelved almost 105,000 cubic feet. So please do continue to work with your local FRCs and your account reps. And as usual, if there's a concern with your agency storing the records, we've had a couple of agencies mention that they're closing facilities down, and so they have to get them out. We will, of course, work with you and help prioritize, those ingestions of those records for you. But please work through your account reps and your local FRCs, just to make sure that we don't have a bunch of stuff coming in that we can't shelve right away for you. And then Arts Group, which is AFC, the customer representatives, will continue and have been working with agencies on those post-submitted transfers where there were issues. Rest assured, if your transfer was put in clarification requested, pending agency action, or the FRCs need some information from you, them and the account reps, those local FRCs and your account reps should be reaching out to you to resolve those so that they can be added once again to that submitted bucket and approved. So please be on the lookout. And if you have any that are in clarification requested, just a reminder, please take action on those so that we can get them officially in the hopper for you. And then the last thing is exceptions. Agencies are still submitting exception requests. And just recently, I would say in the last 3 weeks, we've had 2 that have come through. And once again, if you do not currently have an exception and you get one granted, we work with the records management staff and are copied on your approvals. And we will reach out to you in that case if your access had been turned off in ARCIS to submit transfers and turn it back on. So if you have an exception in place and you're having difficulties actually creating a new transfer for the records that you're allowed to send to us, please reach out to FRCP NTD, or you can email me directly at russell.loisl@nara.gov, and we'll work the magic between your account rep and the ARCIS technical folks and get you turned back on. We had one customer just this last week that for some reason had lost his access. So we got to turn back on for him. So please, if you are having problems, reach out. You can reach out to the help desk, but they'll probably just tell you to contact us. So that's the fastest way to get your access turned back on. All right, next slide, please. All right, so the annual move. So we all know you guys have been working hard on your TRs, and the archives have been approving them. So for 2025, there were over 11,000 accessions proposed. And so you guys are actively working on that with the archives. So that's going good. The 2025 TRs, so the transfer request to get those accessions over to the archive side of the house, your review ends in December. I have been monitoring the annual move mailbox, and I know some agencies are having problems with the volume and reaching out to the annual move group. That's the best thing that you can do. So the archives review and approvals, they have until January 15th, and then it turns into the P2025 physical move. So where they'll actually be getting the records from you and coordinating that, those 2 moves that happen over the next year. For 2026, everything is in the hopper now. The FRCs are reviewing the 135s, checking box lists, verifying stuff is on the shelf. We have until January 24th to do that. And it's another big year. So the final number, according to the annual move group, for proposed 2026 TRs was 1,761. So just shy of 13,000 cubic feet. So it's a good number of transfers. It's not like it was last year, thankfully. But please do stay on top of it. And so we're in that process now where we're phasing out of 2025. We're entering 2026. So just remember the key deadlines and stuff like that. If you have any questions about the annual move, you can email annual.move@nara.gov. It's that easy, and they will be happy to help you. And that's all I have today. Thank you. Sorry, Arian, I can't hear you.
You're on mute, Arian.
Oh God, so something always happens. So I said thank you, Russell, Arthur, Ron, and Jeff for those updates. We do have a couple of questions I want to throw out to you guys. First, I haven't seen the For the Record. How do people get signed up for that?
Okay, very simple. You can email Karen Scott with the Federal Record Centers Program. Karen would be happy to put you on a list to send that out to you. That would be karen.scott@nara.gov. So please send Karen an email with your contact information and we'll make sure that you get it next month.
Thank you. The next one. NARA's ERA system allows end users to log in via login.gov and with their PIV or CAC card. When will the FRC's ARCIS system be enhanced to allow end users to log in via login.gov and with a CAC card?
I can tackle this one if you want, Art.
Yeah, please do, Russ.
All right. So ARCIS is now in, because we are developing next gen ARCIS, which Ron alluded to as 2.0. There is no more development. So that would be something that would be on your wish list and expected in next gen ARCIS. But right now, the actual development coding efforts on ARCIS is no longer supported. So sorry about that. Yeah, I love login.gov, but we'll see if we can get it rolled into next gen for you.
I think that's fair. And here's another ARCIS question. Can ARCIS still be used for electronic records?
I think we would need some clarification. Electronic records, for agencies to have an exception, if you're talking records on physical media that you're sending to Fort Worth, yes, if you have an exception, you can continue to send that media to Fort Worth. Other than that, regular FRCs instituted right at the deadline a policy to stop accepting non-textual records. So that would be a no on basically anything except those that you were sending to the Fort Worth records, electronic records vault.
Thank you both. I think that covers the questions we had in the queue for the FRC this month. Next slide, please. Up next is my colleague, Ann Mason, a senior electronic records policy analyst, to give us a briefing on the metadata for classified records forthcoming bulletin. So Ann, good afternoon.
Great, thanks, Arian. Next slide, please. So just real quickly, I wanted to go over what our bulletins are intended to do. We issue these to clarify and explain records management requirements for agencies, and we try to do them in a way that provides some flexibility in how agencies can incorporate this guidance into your business processes and your records management programs. So we have one that we've drafted on classified metadata. And if we go to the next slide, please. So this is still in the approval pipeline. Can we get the next slide, please? Anyway, so we have a draft bulletin on classified metadata. This is for permanent electronic classified records. And can we go to the next slide, please? Anyway, the bulletin is on the archivist desk. We sent it to her for Dr. Shogan for her review. She still needs to review and sign it, but hopefully that will be forthcoming very soon. And this metadata bulletin builds on the bulletin 2015-04 that we'd issued previously, which is also metadata guidance for transfer of permanent electronic records And so this new bulletin is going to provide updated guidance for classified records. And so some of the metadata elements in the new classified bulletin may look familiar. We have a couple of metadata elements that we reused from Bulletin 2015-04. And we also took some of the standard Form 715 fields that was required for analog transfers and adapted those fields for electronic records. So hopefully some of this looks a little familiar. So there's two big kind of broad categories of metadata. The first one I want to talk about is rights metadata. This covers access restrictions. Actually, go back one slide. This covers access restrictions. And yeah, there we go. Thank you. So the first two there, the security classification and the previous security classification, those were both in 2015-04, that they designate, whether something is classified. And if it's unclassified, it's required that you put in unclassified so that we know that the restrictions have been lifted. If you're exempting records from classification, there's two required fields. The exempt reason, so that's going to be the exemption code from the Executive Order 13526, and also the authority from your agency's declassification guide that gives you authority to exempt files. And those last two were on the standard Form 715. The names might have changed slightly on this new bulletin, but they should look somewhat familiar to those who've also transferred electronic records. And next slide, please. And so NARA has based a lot of our metadata guidance on Dublin Core metadata. Can we go to the next slide that talks about FOIA, please? And under Dublin Core, there's kind of a generic rights metadata that covers a lot of different things. So not only does it cover national security classified metadata, it also covers things like there's a generic access restrictions that's going to cover access restrictions that aren't classified. So that's things like FOIA exemptions and privacy, things like that. Dublin Core also under rights metadata has a field called usage restrictions. That is more about intellectual property. And so things like copyright and trademark. So I just wanted to kind of point out those are covered under 2015-04. The non-classified rights metadata is under 2015-04. That would be access rights and usage rights. We also have a metadata field to note any special controls. So those are additional access restrictions for who can view the file. So if it has nuclear technology information, it might be RD, FRD. So we have a field to note that. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So the next big category of metadata is all about declassification review. And if we can go to the next slide, I can go over those for you. So there are four new metadata fields that are in cover the metadata review. And I'm sorry, there's three new metadata fields that cover metadata review. So these are all around the review action. So that would be either you're declassifying or exempting the file. There's review agent. So that's going to be the agent that did the declassification. This would be the person's name, but if the person is protected, their identity is protected, and you can't release the person's name, you can use kind of a generic ID to indicate who the agent was. And also the review authority is documented. Can we go to the next slide, please? There, thank you. So these two were on the standard Form 715. They further document the declassification review. So these may look familiar to you. So you're noting who the reviewing agency is and the office doing the review. Can we go to the next slide, please? There's also a refer to field. This was on the standard Form 715, so again, it may look familiar to you. So this is where we would note agencies that have equity in the file. So if this is an RD, an FRD restriction, Department of Energy, you would note that in the equity, in the refer to field that documents the equity.
I'm getting it. We lost our slides.
Yes, we did.
So let me pull those up.
I've got them, Arian.
Okay,
Excellent.
thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
So I think we're on 34.
Yes. Yeah, can we go one more? Refer to.
35. Okay.
Can you go one more, Michelle? Thank you. Yep. So here's where you would note to refer to. As I said, this is on the standard form 715. So hopefully you can have a little bit of familiarity with this file. As I said, this is where you would note who has equity in the file. And if you go to the next slide, there's metadata fields that document the date that a declassification review was done, and also a declassification date or event. So this is where you would note either the date that the records are eligible for declassification, or if that eligibility is based on an event like someone's death or 20 years after the program shut down, whatever the event is, you can note that. Both of these were on the SF 715 form, so they may be somewhat familiar. And can we go to the next slide, please? And so we've talked about all the metadata fields. I want to talk a little bit about implementation. So you can store the metadata in your individual files. You can store them in a record keeping system, both, whatever makes sense for your agency and your infrastructure. I think the important thing to remember is that when it comes time to transfer the permanent records to NARA, NARA needs a CSV in order to take care of that transfer. And as I said, the bulletin is going to be forthcoming. And we'll release an AC memo and kind of the normal communication channels once that happens. So be on the lookout for that. And it should be out soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anne. I think now we'll pick up any general questions that have been asked in advance of the meeting or during the meeting, things we've sort of put to the last few minutes here. And I guess I'll start with, will there be any update or discussion on the 2024 NARA reporting period at the BRIDG meeting today? The answer to that simply is, we will issue an AC memo tomorrow. Be on the lookout for that. We hope to issue an AC memo tomorrow with information about the reporting period for the next, for the upcoming reporting period for this calendar year. Next, what type of penalties would an agency face if they do not comply with closing agency record centers in accordance with NARA OMB M2307? I think, Lisa, you volunteered to come on and answer that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Hara-Lampus, and I'm the Director of Records Management Policy and Outreach. And as part of that role, I've been involved in managing exception requests from agencies and for sort of managing NARA and OMB's relationship for M2307. So I saw this question came in and had a few minutes to think about it. So the question, to restate it, Arian, was like, what penalties would agencies face? I think penalties is the wrong word. I think consequences is probably the better word, because penalties implies something else I'm not sure would be appropriate for how the government interacts with the government. But I would just remind everyone that M2307 was first issued as M1921. So NARA and OMB have been working for over 5 years. I'd say we've actually been working together for over a decade on this transition to digital government. And I expect even with the transition of administrations, we're still going to be working on fully digital government. So for the specific question, first it said penalties, and then it talks specifically about closing agency record centers. I'll point out that we issued back in 2020 a bulletin to clarify that requirement in M1921 and M2307. And we said it referred to agency record centers to facilities that housed over 25,000 cubic feet of records. We know some agencies have asked for exceptions for their record centers, and those have been approved. Some agencies, we would still accept an exception request if there was a business need to go forward with maintaining their own agency record center. But on the whole, we're just going to work with OMB and determine if there's any consequences that are appropriate to handle records management issues that develop in our new era or post deadline era. I think that's about all I can respond to that question. Thanks, Arian. Oh, I'm sorry, Arian, I can't hear you.
While I've got you, there was a question on the transition.
Oh.
Does the new management at the White House get a briefing from NARA on the importance of records management?
Oh, that is a good question. Does the White House get a does the incoming management get a briefing? Well, first I would say, and I believe I saw this in YouTube as well. For me, we are at a BRIDG meeting talking about federal records management. So I would frame the answer towards what are we telling agencies to do to prepare for the transition? And that preparation includes records management. And we put a link to our website where we've shared information and resources that NARA's given agencies to support. So there's a level of management, incoming administration management that happens at the federal agency level. I'd also put out and say within that link, there's a link to the GSA Presidential Directory 2024. And that has a wealth of information on how transitions work. So part of the answer to the question about is White House getting management, I would say, well, you can look at the directory and you will see federal records management and presidential records management. So it describes the process and what we do. And then again, we're the federal side, but our colleagues who work in NARA's Office of the General Counsel, that's the group that liaises with both the incoming and outgoing administrations. And they are talking about records management issues, especially issues related to the Presidential Records Act. So I think we have both the presidential side covered and the federal side covered when it comes to briefing and talking to the incoming administration about records management. I think that's a high level answer, but I hope you find those resources helpful in learning more.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
And then the next question, probably for our Federal Records Center colleagues. What happens to transfer requests of permanent records for this current annual move submitted by federal agencies in ERA after December 1st?
I believe that's a Russell question.
All right. So yes, like I said, we don't like to, but we all know that the annual move process, sometimes deadlines can't be met. The annual move does on a case-by-case basis work with records officers to take late additions to the annual move. And once again, any requests for those late additions should be processed and requested through the annual move group, which has both FRC and NARA archives folks involved, custodial units and stuff like that. And so you can email annual.move@nara.gov. But if you know that you're not going to meet the deadline, the sooner the better is the only guidance I can really give you at this point.
Thank you, Russell. I think we have time for one more, maybe. Has the U.S. Office of Personnel Management supplemented the U.S. government-wide exception requests for official personnel folders of government employees?
Hi, Arian. Lisa again. Another good question related to exceptions, related to deadlines. The answer would be, I don't believe so. I am not aware of any supplemental guidance from OMB on OPFs. I will take an opportunity to remind our BRIDG audience that we did talk last meeting about a NARA bulletin. It was a joint NARA OPM bulletin 2024-01 that did contain the government-wide exception that related to both official personnel folders and unofficial personnel employee medical folders. It did not cover unofficial personnel folders. Those are kept at agency levels. So I'm not sure if that's where the question was coming, like, oh, what about these types of records? But the answer is no, we don't have any further guidance or supplemental guidance on those records other than what's in the bulletin. But if that person would like to get more refined questions and send them to us, we can try to help find that answer.
Thank you, Lisa. I see that it's 3 o'clock. So Michelle, if I could have the next slide. Thank you everyone for attending today's Bridge meeting. I want to wish everyone the best of holidays and a happy new year. The next Bridge meeting will be Tuesday, February 11th, 2025, and we will be back at our regular start time of 1:30 p.m. Eastern. So till then, thank you all for attending today's Bridge. Enjoy the rest of your day.